this is Kimberly from Lakeside Loops, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sweet crochet top. It's made using these tiny little granny squares. I went through several different design ideas before I finally landed on the exact square that I wanted. It was a lot of trial and restart before I finally got the square design that I loved, and it all put together in a way that I thought looked best. So I'm excited to dive in. I'm going to show you how to make this little square, how to sew the squares together, and then how to add this little trim around the sleeves and the neck and the bottom. You will need the written pattern in order to complete this design. The video tutorial just covers the trickier pieces of the design. You will need the words to get you through the entire project. So you can find the pattern for free on my website, lakesideloops.com. Everything that you need is there. This video tutorial is meant to help with what you find on the site. You can also download a printable version of the pattern from Etsy or Ravelry, and the links to all of that are in the description of this video. For this design, you will need a 2.75 millimeter crochet hook. See if I can, there we go. This is the one that I used. You will also need some size 1 or sock. It might also be called 4-ply. Any super fine yarn will do. I used Aunt Lydia's, and these are the measurements on the back. You will also need a darning needle to sew these squares together, and a pair of scissors, of course. You can find the exact yarn, like the exact amount that you need. All of that is within the written pattern. All right, so as I said, it's just one square design for this top, so you just need to make the same square over and over again, and I'm going to show you how to do that round by round. So I'm going to start off by putting a knot in your yarn, and you want to leave enough of an end that you can weave it in once you're done building your square. So I have my yarn knotted and a loop on my hook. I am going to chain 4. And now I'm going to double crochet in the 4th chain from my hook. So the very bottom chain down here. Now I'm going to work 6 double crochets into the same chain. So that was 1. I'm sorry, I'm all thumbs when I crochet. So for a double crochet, you yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook into that beginning chain, pull the yarn through, and then I've yarned over and I'm pulling through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that was 2 double crochets, 3, 4, and you can see I'm starting to make a circle here. 5 and 6. So including the original double crochet that I made, I should have 7 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the top of my beginning chain. So we were working into the bottom. Now I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the top here. And that is the end of round 1. All right, so for round 2, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet into the top of the beginning chain from the previous round. So right into where we made our slip stitch, we're going to go right back into that chain, and we're going to single crochet. Now we're going to work 2 single crochets into the back loops only of each stitch all the way around. So what I mean by that is you'll see there's a loop here in the front and a loop here along the back. Normally we would work into both of those when we crochet, but we're going to just work into the back loop only and work, sorry about that, work into the back loop only and work 2 single crochets. So that was 1, here's a second one. So again, this is the front loop right here. This is the back loop, and I want to work just into the back loop and make 2 single crochets. And we're going to do this all the way around. All right, so once I've worked all the way around, you should have 15 single crochets. So you should count your single crochets. This looks like a stitch, but it's just the slip stitch from when we joined our previous round. So do not work into that. Instead, we are going to slip stitch into the beginning chain. And that is how we finish off round 2. All right, so for round 4, just to give you an idea of where we're at, we've made this little center circle. Round 4, we're going to be making these big, tall stitches. So we're going to go back to double crochets. So for round 3, we're going to chain 4, and we're going to double crochet into the back loop only of the next stitch. And then we're going to chain 1 and we're going to double crochet into the back loop only of the next stitch. And we're just repeating this all the way around. So chaining 1, back loop only, chain 1, working into the back loop only, making a double crochet all the way around. So you can see I'm working into the back loop of each stitch, and I'm making sure there's a chain of 1 in between each double crochet that I'm making. Chain 1, back loop only of the next stitch. Going to continue to do that all the way around. All right, so at the end of round 3, you should have 30 stitches. So you should have 15 double crochets with a chain 1 following each. So I've just finished my 15th double crochet and I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain in my beginning chain. So 1, 2, 3 right here. And what that does is it makes the beginning chain, those first 3 chains, look like a double crochet. And then that 4th chain that we made, because remember it was a chain of 4 at the start of this round, is acting as the chain of 1 in between our faux double crochet and our real first double crochet. So that is the end of round 3. All right, for round 4, I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to single crochet into this first chain 1 space. So I'm going to put my hook into the space, around to the back to grab the yarn, and complete a single crochet. And now I'm going to single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. So right back here again, just in the back loop, a single crochet. And now I'm going to single crochet into the next chain 1 space. So again, into this space, grabbing my yarn and pulling it through and completing that single crochet. Now again, into the back loop only, and completing another single crochet. So as we go around, we're working a single crochet into the space and then single crochets into the back loop only of our double crochet stitches. So single crochet here, single crochet in the back loop only of my double crochet from my previous round. And we're going to do that all the way around. Oop. All right, so I've reached the end of round 4. I've worked a single crochet into every gap space and into the back loop of every double crochet, and now I am going to join with a slip stitch to my beginning chain. And that is what you should have at the end of round 4. All right, so for round 5 and 6, we're going to go from having a circle to making this into more of a square. So we've done our circle part, and now we're going to work on these details around the edges that make it into a square. So for round 5, we are going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to skip 2 stitches and slip stitch into the next stitch. So we're skipping this stitch, we're skipping this stitch, and sorry, we're slip stitching into the back loop of the next stitch. So right into here. Now we're going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and this time we're just going to skip 1 stitch and slip stitch into the back loop only of the next stitch. And now we're chaining 3 again, and we're skipping 2 this time and slip stitching into the following stitch. So we had a chain of 3 and we skipped 2, a chain of 3 and we just skipped 1. So this is a little more peaked. These ones are a little flatter. This will be a little bit more peaked. And then we chained 3 and skipped 2 again. So all of it is chaining 3 and we're skipping 2, skipping 1, skipping 2. So let's do that again. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip 2, 1, 2, and slip stitch into the back loop only of the next stitch. We're going to chain 3 again, and this time we're just skipping 1 stitch. And now we're going to chain 3 again, and this time we're skipping 2 stitches. And we're just going to repeat that 2 more times, and then we'll be back around to where we started. All right, so I'm at the end of round 5. I've done my chain 3, skip 2, chain 3, skip 1, and this is my last chain 3, skip 2. And we're going to slip stitch in, we're skipping 2, 1, 2, and then we're slip stitching right into here. And that will bring us back to where we started. So we're just slip stitching into the base. If you look at your slip stitch, the first slip stitches that you made, and you count backwards from your, let me get closer here, the first slip stitch that you made over here, and you count backwards, 1, 2, 3 chains, you're just slip stitching into the base here where you started. So that is the end of round 5. Now for round 6, we're going to slip stitch into the first 2 chains. So immediately I'm just grabbing my yarn and slip stitching into these first 2 chains. And that brings me sort of to the middle of this first loop that we've made. Now I'm going to chain 2 and work 3 double crochet into the next chain 3 space. So I'm chaining 2, 1, 2, and now I'm going to work 3 double crochet into the next, so over here, chain 3 space. One, 2, 3. So I've slip stitched into my first 2 chains there, I've chained 2, and then I've worked 3 double crochet into this chain 3 space. Now I'm going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and I'm going to work 3 double crochet into this same chain 3 space. So 3 more double crochet, 1, 2, 3. And as you can probably tell, I've just created my first corner. We just did this piece right here. So now I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to slip stitch into the next chain 3 space. So I'm chaining 2, and then this next chain 3 space right here, I'm going to work a slip stitch. Sorry, let me zoom in here. So I've chained 2 and I'm working a slip stitch into the space, not into a stitch, just into the space in that group of the chain 3. Now I am going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to slip stitch into the next chain 3 space, which is right here. Just like that. And now we're going to start all over again. So I'll be chaining 2 and then working the double crochets that I did over here into this piece to make a second corner. So let me show you what that looks like. So chaining 2, 1, 2. I'm going to work 3 double crochets into my next chain 3 space. 1, 2. Sorry, need more yarn. 3, and now I am going to chain 2 and work 3 more double crochets into this same chain 3 space. 1, 2, oh, 3. And that is our second corner. Now I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, slip stitch into my next chain 3 space, chain 3, and slip stitch into my next chain 3 space. And now I'm ready to start all over again and make my third corner. So if you look back here, you end up with this corner section with the 3 double crochets, the chain of 2, the 3 double crochets, then it's a chain of 2 and you slip stitch. Sorry, let me put my finger behind, it's a little easier to see. Okay, so we have our 3 double crochets, our chain of 2 and 3 double crochets, and that makes our corner. Then we've got a chain of 2 and we've slip stitched into this chain 3 space, a chain of 3, which is giving us sort of another bump right here, and a slip stitch into this chain 3 space, and then another chain of 2 leading into our next corner. So 3 double crochets, chain of 2, 3 double crochets, chain of 2, chain of 3, chain of 2, and then back to our corner section for the next piece. So we're just going to continue around and we'll end up with 4 corners. All right, so I'm at the end of round 6 and I've done my chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and now I'm at the part where I chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I need to slip stitch into the next chain 3 space. But in this case, I've reached the end of my round and I'm slip stitching into the first chain 3 space from my previous round. So where we slip stitched 2 stitches, I'm working into the middle of that. So this is where we started. We slip stitched 2 to get us to the center of this chain 3 space, and I'm just going to slip stitch right into there to finish off my round. And that is my first square. So you will need to make a series of these. It says in the written pattern exactly how many to make depending on what size top you are making. Of course, you would cut this and weave in the ends, and then I will show you how to stitch it all together. All right, when it comes to joining all of the squares that you've made together, in the written pattern, I have a graph that illustrates the assembly. So I have how many squares you need this way, how many squares you need down. You need to leave a space for the neck, and then there are some squares along the back. I'll show you on this finished one here. There are some squares along the back that you are not going to join together. So let me take the hanger out of here. Sorry, that was not very smooth. All right. So when you stitch all this together, you are omitting some squares for the neck. And again, depending on what size you're making, this might look a little different. And then you are leaving sort of a line here where you haven't joined these squares together, so that we can add a closure, and you can easily get this top on. Because it is kind of a high neck, you need this gap in the back so that you can get your head into your top. And then of course, once you're done joining all the squares together, you would stitch the sides closed, leaving a hole open for the arms. So when it comes to stitching these squares together, like I said, I show you how many across and how many long, where to leave the holes and where to leave this line. When it comes to stitching the squares together, you can do whatever works best for you. You can stitch them this way and then this way. I've seen people do sort of zigzaggy, whatever you want to do works. When it comes to stitching them together, you are going to join them at the double crochets. So all along here, all 3 double crochets, and you are going to join them at this peak chain 3 spot. So when you're joining them together, get the zoom right here. There we go. When you are joining them together, oh, no, sorry guys. There we go. When you are joining them together, you are joining here where these double crochets are, and you are joining here at the peak of this little chain 3 spot. So double crochets, chain 3 spot, double crochets. Now, of course, I don't want you to just join these 3 and have your yarn cut and have to weave that in. Join this, cut your yarn, have to weave that in, and join this and have to cut your yarn and weave that in. That's a lot of weaving. Nobody wants that. So I'm going to show you how to join these, and I just weave my yarn through these other stitches to get to where I need to do my joins. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to show you using this sort of beigey colored yarn. So I'm going to thread my darning needle. And a darning needle, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just a blunt needle with a wide hole at the end so that you can thread yarn instead of just thread. So I just put some yarn through my darning needle like that, and I'm going to start here, and we are only and I'm going to start here, and this is just how I do it. There are a number of ways that you could join this together. Sorry, I actually just adjusted this so it's a little closer to the ground here. So again, I'm going to be joining these double crochets to these double crochets, the peak of this to the peak of this, and then double crochets again. So I'm going to start by inserting my darning needle into that first double crochet on this piece. When I pull this yarn through, I'm going to make sure to leave a long enough tail that I can weave that in when I'm done. Now I'm going to work into the first double crochet on the next piece that I'm joining to, and then back through into my next double crochet on this piece. I'm just going to, my yarn was caught on my tripod there. I'm just going to pull that through. Now again, I'm going to work into my next double crochet on the top square and my next double crochet on my bottom square. And I'm going to pull that yarn through, and then last double crochet, and I'm just going to go back into this last double crochet on this square, just so nothing slants and everything's lined up. So if I pull that a little tighter, pull this a little tighter, you can see I've joined these double crochets to these double crochets. Now I need to get to here. The next part I want to join together is right here, and I need to get this yarn over to there. As I said, you could cut this, but that would lead to a lot of weaving. Nobody wants that. That's not fun. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit so you can see. I'm just going to be weaving. Now you would be using the same color yarn as what you made your squares with. I'm just using this beigey color yarn so you can better see the stitches. But you're just going to weave your thread, or your yarn, sorry, in and out of the stitches until you get to the middle of this chain of 3. Pulling that yarn through. Ooh, I got my tail wrapped up in there. There. So I've just weaved that yarn through to the middle of this chain 3 point. Now that I'm in the middle, I'm going to take my needle through the middle of that hole into the next and join them together. Now you can knot it like I am here, or you can just wrap it around. It doesn't really matter. All right, now that is joined. Now our next join is going to be, again, these double crochets to these double crochets. So I need to get my thread from here all the way over to here. So again, I'm just going to weave my yarn through these stitches until I get to where I want it to be. Now that that's done, I'm all lined up to work into this first double crochet on my bottom square, and then into this double crochet on my top square, and into the next double crochet on my bottom square, just like we did at the start here. And then going into double crochet number 2 up top, double crochet number 3 at the bottom here, and then into the last double crochet up top and back into the last double crochet at the bottom. Again, just trying to keep everything as lined up as possible. So you can clearly see the thread, the yarn that I've used to join this here. Again, that's why you would use the same color that you used for your squares. But that is how you would join that. Then when it comes to the next square, again, you only want to join the double crochets to the double crochets, these peaks to these peaks, and same for the side. These double crochets to these double crochets, peak to peak, and then double crochets together. So what I would do is weave down through. So let me back up here. The best thing that I found was to weave my yarn down to here, to this double crochet, then attach these 2 double crochets, and then weave my yarn through to this guy. Once I get to this double crochet, then I would start joining these together, weave through, join these loops together, weave through, and then join these double crochets together. Okay, so again, I'm just going to weave my yarn through here. Oop. And into that. Oop, I hit my camera. Into this double crochet down here, and then I can join it with this double crochet over here that it would match up with. Because eventually these 2 things will have to be sewn together. And I'm just going to throw another loop in there to better secure it. Great. All right, so now I need to get up to this double crochet. So I'm going to weave my yarn through here to get up to this double crochet. And now I'm ready to start and do what I did over here. I'm joining these double crochets to these double crochets. Just like that, and working my way across. Then once I'm done doing that, I would have to come back and go up this way. As you can see, this is already a section of 4 that I've joined, but what I tended to do with this was I would join a whole bunch of them together, and then once I had a row, I would join as many across as I could all the way up, and then I had to go back through and do sort of from here down to get everything joined together in a nice way. So it took some time, but if you like to stitch, I found it quite peaceful, and it was fun seeing the big picture come together. And now I'm going to show you how to add this trim to the bottom of your top, the sleeves of your top, and the neck of your top. So again, I'm using a contrasting color. You would use likely the same color yarn. So you are going to attach your yarn along, I'm just using a sample piece here, but you're going to attach your yarn along the bottom of your sweater. And again, you're working into the back loop only. So you are just going to slip stitch along, and every time you come to a group of 3 double crochets or this chain 3, you are going to make one of these little bumps, we'll call them. All right, so I'm about to be at the middle, so let me start a little further back here, I guess. I could start into the chains over here. So you're just working along, slip stitching into the back loop only of every stitch. And when you get to the middle of a chain of 3, you're going to slip stitch, chain 3, and then slip stitch into the 3rd chain from your hook. So this beginning chain here. And that makes a little, bring it up a little closer, a little bump. And then you're just going to start slip stitching again into the back loops or the chains. All the way around. And when I get to this chain 3, I am slip stitching into the middle chain, I'm chaining 3, I'm slip stitching into the 3rd chain from my hook, so that beginning chain, and then I'm going to continue on my slip stitching journey here, just slip stitching into each chain or back loop of a stitch until I get to my next grouping of 3 double crochets. I'm slip stitching into the middle one, I'm chaining 3, I'm slip stitching into the 3rd chain from my hook, and then continuing on my slip stitch journey. So as you can see, it's making these little bumps and it's adding a little bit of a thicker trim to the base of my work here. So let me show you on a bigger piece. So again, I'm only doing the little bumps on the chain 3 sections and toward the middle of my double crochet sections. I'm just doing slip stitches in between the squares. So really you're only getting 3 bumps per square all the way around. And it's the same with the sleeves. The neck is a little bit different, and you can find the detailed instructions for that on the pattern, but it's the same idea, except when I get to, so you see how this neck is a rectangle. When I get to these corners, I'm actually double crocheting 3 into the corner section to help round out my rectangle. And again, I'm only having the 3 bumps per square. All right, one last note on this pattern. With this opening at the back, you will need to add something. I added a little button. Another thought I had was you could add a ribbon and then tie a bow back here, which I thought would be really sweet. You could even buy a clip. I had a hair bow. As you can see in some of the pictures online, there's a black bow. That's just a hair bow that I fed through here and clipped onto here as a closure. So lots of different options for you, but you do need to add a little something here to close this up. As you can see, I haven't weaved in my ends. This was just sort of a temporary, but I just added a little button and then just a string, piece of the yarn to have that closure at the back. So I hope that you enjoyed this pattern. I hope that you enjoyed this top. I can't wait to see pictures of everyone in it. Thank you very much for following along. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much. Take care.